Okay, so if you know how to read a tape measure or ruler and you have some practical math skills, then you should be able to solve this problem. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and read it to you. It says the following. Cut a 16-foot 10 inches long wood beam into four equal parts and using a tape measure, how long is each part? So what we want to do here is just imagine that we are working in construction, or maybe you're doing some home project, or maybe you are taking a shop class and you have this 16-foot 10 inches long wood beam and you got to cut it in four equal parts. Now, of course, you need to measure out where you're going to be cutting, and that really is the question. How long is each one of these parts? All right, now feel free to use a calculator, but if you can figure this out, go ahead and put your answer into the comment section. I'll show you the correct answer in just 1 second. Then, of course, I want to walk through exactly how to solve this problem step by step. But before we get started, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John, and I have been teaching middle and high school math for decades. And if you need help learning math, check out my math help program at tcmathacademy.com. You can find a link to that in the description below. And if this video helps you out, or if you just enjoy this content, make sure to like and subscribe, as that definitely helps me out. All right, so here again is our problem. Now, some of you out there, imagine a lot of you, are real experts in the area of construction or just working with your hands, and that is fantastic because there is a lot of math involved in practical trade type of skills. So whether it's construction, excuse me, electronics, etc., etc., you don't have to necessarily need a college degree to need math. Okay, matter of fact, some of the people that I know that are in the trades are very good in terms of practical mathematics. But let's go ahead and take a look at the answer. So 16 foot, 10 inches long wood beam. How long is each part if we cut this thing into four equal parts? Well, the correct answer is the following. So 50 inches or 50 and 1/2 inches. So this is one way to express the answer, or 4 feet, 2 and 1/2 inches. All right, now if you got this right, you definitely get a happy face, an A plus, a 100%, and a certificate of excellence for being able to use a tape measure or read a tape measure, which actually involves your knowledge of fractions. Okay, so some of you might be saying, "Hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, this is should be easy, but why am I confused?" Well, let's go ahead and take a look at this problem. Now we are dealing with a word problem. So what you want to do is read it at least 3 times, right? So make sure you understand a problem before you actually start to figure it out. So we have this wood beam. So what is a wood beam? Well, it's just basically a piece of wood. And for our purposes, we need to kind of simplify the problem and just imagine that this is a very straight piece of wood, right? So it's not all, turning. But of course, in real life, you have these situations where nothing is exactly perfect. But for our purposes, we're just going to imagine that this wood beam, this piece of wood, is like perfectly square. And we want to cut it into four equal parts. So we need to use a tape measure. So what is a tape measure? Well, this is going to be different for some of you out there. It really depends on where you're located. So I'm going to be talking about the U.S. Standard. I believe it's called U.S. Standard System versus the metric system. But of course, you have a tape measure for metric measurements as well. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, some tape measures have both units of measure on them, but I could be wrong. Of course, if you know the answer, put that into the comment section. But let's go ahead and quickly review a tape measure. So this is my little kind of picture of a tape measure, or my little kind of sketch of one. So, pretty much everyone has one of these in their house. So when you're trying to figure out what size rug you need for your bedroom, or if you're trying to say, hey, I want this size TV on my wall, well, you got to break out your tape measure, right? So it's this little thing like this, and this little metal piece or whatever it is, aluminum, kind of comes out like so, and we measure things with a tape measure. So here is our wood beam. It's 16 feet, 10 inches long. Now, again, we're dealing with the standard units of measure. We're not talking about centimeters or meters or millimeters. So for those of you that are not used to the standard units of measure, just kind of playing along, I'll kind of review it. But what we need to do is kind of measure this out, and we already did, right? Because we know that this beam is 16 feet, 10 inches long. Now we need to get the measurement for a piece that is going to be equal to the rest of these pieces right here, right? So we're going to take this thing and divide it by 4, and then we want to measure this out. So this problem is really, I'm going to try to, describe it in terms of actual practical maybe kind of like a shop class. And for those of you that have never taken a shop class, of course, I don't even know if shop class exists anymore. I hope it does. It's a real shame if it doesn't because, working with your hands and math, these kind of practical skills, it's a really, really great way to learn mathematics. But anyways, let's go ahead and proceed. So here is our lovely tape measure. Now, when we pull out this little thing, this kind of measuring, matter of fact, I don't even know the nomenclature here. Some of you probably know. I guess it's the tape, quote unquote. When we pull this thing out, we're going to have different measurements on it. Now, the biggest measurement that you're going to be able to measure on a tape measure for most tape measures is going to be feet. Okay, so we got 1 foot. And what is a foot? Well, more or less, I'm just going to take a random guess, maybe some average size of a man's shoe. I'm kind of drawing a real bad description of a shoe here, or a picture, if you will, or a sketch. Here's my little shoe. So maybe this is around like 1 foot. Okay, not perfect, but you kind of get the idea, right? So that's kind of the basic idea of how long a foot is. But within a foot, 1 foot, we have inches. So 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. And hopefully most people know that. Now on our tape measure, again, we can kind of pull out our tape like so, and you can measure in feet, but we can also measure in inches. Now the inches are going to be within the feet. So our beam here is 16 foot, 10 inches. So we need to kind of review inches. Okay, so here on our tape measure is our inches. So we have 3 inches here, let's say 4 inches here. Now this is where it gets very interesting, and a lot of you that are really experts or skilled in construction, trades, any kind of thing where you have to measure, you're pretty much experts in fractions and decimals and place value because you got to work with this stuff all the time. All right, so an inch is, oh, I don't know, basically, some of you have a much better idea of this. Maybe if you put your 2 fingers together like so, maybe that's like an inch. Of course, a lot of you could give me a better kind of rough estimate of what an inch is. But just so some of you out there that are not familiar with the standard unit of measure, that is about the size of an inch. So on our tape measure, on our tape, we'll be able to see inches as well as feet. Now I'll show you this a little bit better here in a second, but let's just review 1 inch. Okay, so here is 3 inches and here is 4 inches. Now the notation for feet and inches are the following. So this is 4 feet. Okay, we can write it this way with 1 little apostrophe. Okay, and this is the same as 4 feet. Or we could write 3 inches. So that would be 2 apostrophes, and that would be the same as 3 inches. So let's imagine that this is 3 inches and this is 4 inches. Okay, so here is the marks that are on most tape measures. Again, I'm kind of going based upon my general knowledge of tape measures and my usage of them. So you have your 1 inch broken up in the following manner. Okay, so we're going to break up this 1 unit right here, and we're going to break it up in different ways. So first of all, we're going to look at the little marks on the tape measure, and right in half is what? Well, that's a half of inch. So right here, okay, this distance right there would be 1/2 of an inch. Now what we're going to do is continue to kind of break this thing up, this 1 inch, into halves. All right, so we have a 1/2 inch there. Now if we cut that 1/2 again in half, okay, we're going to have what? 1/4. And you can kind of see these marks on your tape measure. So this would be 1/4. This would be what? 2/4. And 1/4 and 2/4. If we add a quarter and add another quarter, this entire distance right here, matter of fact, really this should be 1/4 inch, and this is another 1/4 inch. together, this is at 2/4 inches, which is the same as 1/2. And then right here, how many quarters do we have? Well, this is another 1/4 inch. So we have 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. So at this distance right here, that's 3/4 of an inch. Okay, then of course right here, we're at what? Well, we have 4/4, or 4/4, or we have 1 inch. So again, you have to really understand fractions to be able to work nicely with units of measure to measure things out like this. But let's go ahead and continue on. So here's our 1/2 inch. Here is our 1/4 inch. This is our 3/4 inch. Now we can divide the 1/4 inch again by 2. So what's that? Well, 1/4 divided by 2 is equal to what? Well, let's review fractions. So when we're doing fraction division, we have 1/4 times, right? We're going to change this from division to multiplication by flipping this number. So that's 2, or 2 over 1, so that's going to be 1/2. So how do we multiply fractions? We multiply the respective numerators and denominators, and we're going to end up with 1/8. Okay, so right here, this is 1/8 of an inch, and if we divide the 1/8 of an inch, we're going to end up with 1/16. Okay, so typically, you're going to see, I believe, as small as 16ths on our tape measure, okay, or on most standard tape measures. So this is a 16th. This is what? 1/8 is 2/16. Right here would be like 3/16, and then 4/16 is what? Well, 4/16 is the same thing as 4/16, or 1/4. So you can see again, when you're looking at all those different marks between and inches, you really have to understand fractions. Okay, so hopefully this is a quick review on how to read a tape measure, at least within the inches. So let's go ahead and continue on. All right, so here is our problem. We have 16 feet and 10 inches long. That's how long our wood beam is, and we want to divide it into 4 equal parts. So we want to divide this by 4. Now, what we need to consider here is the units of measure. So here we have feet, and here we have inches. So we need to pick one unit of measure. In other words, we need to work in all inches or all feet. Now, here, typically, it's going to make more sense to always convert to the smallest unit. So if we have inches here, it's going to be better to convert 16 feet into inches, but you could convert these inches into feet, and that could work out as well, especially if you have a calculator. But I'm not going to do that in this particular video. So what we're going to do is convert 16 feet and 10 inches all into inches. So our beam is going to be all in inches. So we have to pick one unit of measure, and I'm going to choose inches, but you could use feet as well. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So 16 feet and 10 inches, how do we convert feet into inches? Well, what we're going to do is multiply our feet by 12. Okay, so 16 times 12 is 192 inches, and we already have 10 inches, right? So our 16 feet is 192 inches, but we have an additional 10 inches, so our total length of this beam is 202 inches. Now here, I kind of made it look really easy. 16 feet times 12 inches is 192 inches, but let's just take a closer look on how to convert units of measure. All right, so here is our 16 feet, and what we're doing is multiplying by a conversion factor. Now, a conversion factor is a fraction, and it's a fraction that's going to involve inches and feet or inches. It's some sort of comparison of two values that basically represent the same distance but just different units of measure. So here we want to think of what? Well, we're trying to get rid of feet. So if we write our conversion factor as 1 foot is the same as 12 inches. So 12 inches is the same as 1 foot, right? This distance is the same. But when we multiply these fractions here, the feet go away and we're left with inches. That's why we're multiplying 16 times 12 and our answers in inches. But some people, when they're converting units of measure, get confused and they might say to themselves, all right, I know that 1 foot is the same thing as 12 inches. Well, if you did it this way, what you would end up doing is be dividing 16 by 12, right? Because we're multiplying fractions here, and that's going to be wrong because these units of measure are not cross-canceling. In other words, inches is not taking out the feet. You're going to end up with feet squared over inches. So Be very careful when you are converting units of measure. But for this simple little problem, most people know, oh, 16 feet, how many inches? Just multiply by 12. All right, so our wood beam is 202 inches long. So what do we need to do? Well, we got to take that and divide it by 4. All right, so 202 inches, that's our 16 foot and 10 inches long wood beam. So we take this and divide it by 4. And again, feel free to use a calculator or you can do it by hand. You're going to end up with 50.5 inches. Okay, but our tape measure, we don't read point 0.5. So we have to just kind of understand what is point 0.5 of an inch. And we're going to talk about that in 1 second. But first, I'm going to show you this. And that is an invitation to support this channel. Okay, my channel is all about trying to make math clear and understandable. And I really want to reach as many people as I can. All right, I've been on YouTube for a long time. And I'm talking about students, retired people. Matter of fact, a lot of people who watch my videos are, well past their school years. I'll say that kind of as respectfully, as I can. In other words, see, there's people out there, and I actually really like it because I get a lot of good feedback from people who are retired engineers, or maybe they were in the construction trades or whatever, and they just enjoy mathematics, or they're just trying to relearn math to keep their brain sharp. So that is fantastic. So if you're one of those folks that just like watching my math videos, thank you so much. Hopefully you're a subscriber. If you're not, that really does help me out. Make sure to hit that notification bell as well so you can get my latest videos. But I just wanted to tell you all briefly what you'll find in my Math Academy. So you're going to find full-on rigorous math courses from middle to high school math and even college mathematics. You're also going to find a ton of test prep courses. So if you have to get ready for like the GED exam or SAT exam or maybe a teacher certification exam, I have a ton of courses there. I also offer full homeschool math courses. I have a great little math course called Math Foundations. That's a basic math course for those of you that need that level of math. And then for those of you that just like learning math, you might want to consider my Math Skills Rebuilder course there. I start with basic math and go all the way through algebra and geometry. All right, so let's get back to this problem here. So we have 50.5 inches. Okay, now think about this problem in terms of using our tape measure. So you're saying, all right, if somebody says 50.5 inches, well, most people would interpret the 0.5 as half an inch. But what happens if I gave you, like, say, 0.25, right? Some other decimal value. Well, then you need to understand how to convert a decimal to a fraction. So 0.25 is the same thing as what? Well, that is the 2 is in the tenths place, the 5 is in the hundredths place. So 0.25 is 25 hundredths. So that would be 25 over 100, which of course is the fraction 1/4. So 50.25 is 50 and 1/4 inches on our tape measures. So you gotta have these practical math skills when dealing with or just in terms of trades, reading tape measures. You gotta understand decimals, how to convert decimals to fractions, fractions to decimals, and how to really work with fractions. Okay, so this particular example should be hopefully pretty easy, but we have 0.5 inches, so we need to convert 0.5, and 0.5, another way to say that is 5/10. So that's 5 over 10, or 1/2 when we reduce that fraction. So we have a half an inch. So 50.5 inches is really 50 and 1/2 inches. Okay, so that is how long one of our parts are going to be. Again, we're going to take that beam and chop it up into 4 equal parts, each part being 50 and 1/2 inches. Okay, so let's go ahead and take our tape measure back out. So on our tape measure, what we want to be looking at is inches, right? So 50 and 1/2 inches. So we're just going to kind of ignore the feet. Now this is one way to do it. I'll show you another way to do it. This is the way I would do it. And I think most people would just look at the inches because we're looking for 50 and 1/2 inches. So we'll just kind of pull out our tape measure and we get to the 50 mark, and here's 51. That's too far. So here is the half-inch mark. Okay, so right there, this is, whoops, I went too far on my little thing here. Let me get back here. I apologize for that. All right, so here is our half-inch mark right there. Okay, so this is 50 and 1/2 inches. Okay, if it was 50 and 1/4 inches, it would be right here. If it was 50 and 1/16 of an inch, it would be like right in here, right on that 1/16th mark. So, using a tape measure is not as simple as well, it's not that difficult, but obviously if you're not too strong with fractions, you're going to be confused. All right, there's another way that we can kind of think about this, and a lot of you already know this. If you're saying, all right, 50.5 inches, that's 50 and 1/2 inch. Or you can think of that 50 inches in terms of feet. How many feet are in that 50 inches? Well, you could just look at multiples of 12, right? So 12 times 1, that's 1 foot. 12 times 2, that's 2 foot. 12 times 4, that's 4 feet. So that would be 48 inches. So 48 inches is the same thing as 4 feet. So you could just go to 4 feet and then add on another 2 inches, which of course you'll see on your tape measure that that would be 50 inches. So 48 inches, same thing as 4 feet. And 4 feet, 2 and 1/2 inches. Okay, so hopefully I didn't make this too confusing. But in all honesty, you gotta know how to measure, and you gotta have some practical math skills. Right now, of course, you don't have to, but your life is gonna be a lot better. And you just, don't know when you're gonna run into practical math needs if you, have a bedroom or a home and you want to kind of, figure out, hey, can this couch or this bed fit in this bedroom? What size TV can I fit on this wall? How long do I have to measure this molding to put around my door? You got to know how to use a tape measure, which means you got to know something about practical mathematics, i.e., fractions and decimals. Okay, so hopefully this was an interesting little video. And if that's the case, don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your math adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.